Well, Chicago Wolves continue their solid run with points in their last 7 games, cementing their position in second place in the Central Division. Bradly Nadeau and Justin Robidas have been driving the offense, and the Wolves have received valuable defensive contributions from relative newcomers Juuso Valimaki and Cal Foote. Joining me as always to talk about the Wolves and their recent run and what we can look forward to in the coming months, our insider, Andrew Rinaldi. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Tom. I hope you guys are staying warm down in the south. I know there's been this apocalyptic snowstorm cutting through the southern states, but for us here in Michigan, it's kind of Tuesday, so it's
business as usual for you. Yes, of course. Being a person from up north in Canada for many years, of course, I'm used to that as well. It has been cold. The polar vortex system has hit us as well. We had some rain that turned to ice, and of course, you know how that goes. But the last day or so, it's warmed up a little bit during the day, so it's melted off. But boy, it's been chilly. This morning, I think I headed out, and it was about 15 degrees. So,
oh boy.
That's not normal Georgia weather, I can assure you of that. In any case, it's great hockey weather and helping us stay in the mood for sure. Anyway, great to have you on as always, Andrew. And, I've been following what's been going on closely with the Wolves lately. And since Spiros Anastas took over, they've been playing some great hockey. They've gone 9-2-2-4 since December 12th when he took the reins. And, the last 7 games, their offense has been just smoking. They scored 35 goals. I mean, it's insane. I think one game was 7-6, another game was 6-5. I mean, these numbers are foolish, right? And you're watching these scores and going, you got to be kidding me. But they did win 5 of the 7. So that was good news. The bad news was they did give up 28 goals. So, yeah, there's some concerns there. I did a quick check of this year versus last year just for interest's sake, and it's pretty similar. Last year, after 36 games, they had 40 points. They were sitting in 4th in the Central. This year, after 39 games, they have 48 points. So it's in the same range, but they're sitting in 2nd place in the Central. So a little bit of a better situation for them. And, of course, they're following the big dog, the juggernaut, the Grand Rapids Griffins. So, and I think everybody will be and is following those guys. They're sitting nicely in 2nd place. They're 7 points ahead of 3rd place Manitoba Moose. So it's all good. And what can you tell us about what you're seeing these days?
Yeah, there's been a lot of the red light being lit up the last half of this month here, and the Wolves have both been on a tear and they've kind of had a bit of a tear going back the other way. It's yeah, they had a very interesting road trip with a couple stops in Cleveland and another one in Rockford where you just see this team getting down in the first half of these games like 5-1, something ridiculous, and then having just this miraculous comeback where, I mean, granted they're putting the puck into the net quite a bit, but they're also putting themselves kind of behind the 8 ball and the 7 ball and the 6 ball as well. So, but yes, the numbers are just absolutely, eye popping and, really kind of reminiscent of the fireworks that go off to start Wolves games. Now you've got them going throughout the game here for better and for worse. It's been an exciting brand of hockey. I think that maybe the coaching staff would probably like to tighten it up a little bit here and there, but I think since the naming of the All-Star teams, perhaps this would probably be a good segue into it. The Wolves Stars have really been shining, and it's been a fun product. Whether, like I said, whether the coaching staff will agree with me or not is probably different, but they don't come around with those 7-6 games quite often. So I'll appreciate it while they're on the beat.
Well, you mentioned the All-Stars, and 3 of those guys have certainly been putting their finger on the on the offensive side, for sure, their contributions have been huge, and that's Bradly Nadeau, of course, Justin Robidas, and Domenick Fensore. All three of those guys will be heading to the All-Star game, so that's exciting stuff for the Wolves. Let's talk a little bit about the forwards and this top forward line, which I think has just been absolutely unstoppable. I mean, you've got Ryan Suzuki centering for Bradly Nadeau and Justin Robidas. And we talked a little bit last month about, Robidas had been moved over to the wing. And, it's interesting. I heard a podcast on Sound the Siren recently with Spiros Anastas, and he was talking about Robidas. And he said he's totally able to play center ice. Don't worry. He's a great centerman. But he's doing so much on the right side, and he's been so effective there that we didn't really feel like we needed to move him back to center. So good story. And, of course, Spiros Anastas also saying quite clearly that in his mind, Justin Robidas is ready to play in the National Hockey League, and he's putting it all together. And he kind of made an interesting comment, which was last year was Robidas' first real year in pro. The year before, he was in the Eastern League. It's pro, but it's not quite the same. And he said, last year he was kind of cutting his teeth and figuring out this. And he said he's a very, very smart player, a very intelligent player. And they sent him off with some to-dos in the summer. He said he came back, he was ready, and he's a different player now. So you can see it. He's on track for a 40-goal year or whatever this year. It's insane. So definitely that line's been hot. The last 7 games for Robidas, 7 goals, 7 assists.
I think that's good.
So what are you seeing with Justin Robidas?
I've kind of banged this drum for a while, and I'm going to continue to do it. It's the guy's motor that really just kind of is the core to his game. I mean, it's his right. Coach Anastas is correct in his smarts for the game, and all the little details that I think he's kind of put together since his rookie year heading into this year. But none of that matters if you don't have a guy who goes out and battles as hard as he does every single shift. And I think that's been like his best attribute.
Yeah.
So, last year he had those intangibles, and yeah, he might have had to work on a couple details and a little a couple kinks in his game. Well, now he's ironed all of those out, and you're seeing the results of that this year. And again, if you're averaging a goal and assist a game over a couple of weeks span, I think that qualifies as beyond on fire. And Coach Anastas said straight up, is just repeating what you said. This guy's can play at the next level tomorrow if need be. So it's I think it's a great problem to have, one that they can shift him to the wing, they can move him to the center, and it all stems from that attitude of like, I'll play wherever you need me, I'll do whatever needs to be done to be successful, and I'll the talent here or there doesn't matter, because he's going to go out and he's going to outcompete whoever is going to be lining up against him on the other side. So I've enjoyed watching the progression in his game and watch him continue to grow into. I mean, it's one thing to outwork a guy, but then he can outthink you on top of it as well. And again, you're seeing the fruits of his labor, and when you see the work he puts in now start to really pile up on the score sheet, it's the makings of a really special season that he's building here in Chicago.
Well, and the interesting thing is he's moved up to a tie for 8th overall in AHL scoring. So he's sitting at 39 points now, 20 goals in 36 games, and he's a plus 26. I mean, this guy he's doing it all. I mean, he's doing it all. His last 19 games, 16 goals and 11 assists. It's incredible the run he's on. Mm-hmm. In fact, I said recently on X, I said it's an all-world run. It's just incredible. So he's been doing it all. And, it's great to see him recognized, too, in that all-star game. I think that's fantastic. And, he's somebody we're going to keep watching. I hope he can continue to score. He's going to slow down a little bit, but I hope he can top 30 or 35 goals this year, because that would really be fantastic for him. of course, aiding and abetting him in a huge way is the show. And then, of course, that's Bradly Nadeau. And he was named what? AHL Player of the Week for the second time in about 6 weeks. So on December 7, he was Player of the Week. January 25, he's Player of the Week. This guy just doesn't quit. Last 20 games for him, 13 goals, 13 assists. That's ridiculous. He's 10th in the AHL in scoring now, plus 23. I can go on and on about this guy. What can you say about Bradly Nadeau?
What more can I really say about him at this point? Obviously he's been a big point of emphasis every week, and we bring him up when we talk about, the NHL caliber shot he has. We talk about the game the game within the game that he continues to work on, and all the details beyond just shooting the puck that make him a more rounded player. That's why he's got those 13 assists to go on top of those 13 goals. And that he's the key cog in the straw that stirs the Wolves' drink in that first line,
Right.
And it's right. At this point, what more can I really say that hasn't already been said? It's been a blessing to have this guy around in a Wolves sweater. I don't know how many more games we're going to have of him at this point.
That's an interesting question, which we'll talk about for sure. Yes.
But he's going to keep doing his thing, and the fact that he continues to do it with such consistency, and it's, I don't want to say making it look like child's play because this is a grown men's league and everything, but as a 20-year-old doing the things that he's doing, not a lot of guys should be able to do it. And it's, he's got all the marks of a guy who's going to be a contributor at the next level. And it's right. I mean, I feel like I don't want to keep repeating myself and saying the same things that I've been saying week after week or month after month on this show about him, but it's hard. You got a guy of his talent, and he keeps, he there's not a whole lot of bumps to his game. He keeps bringing it every night, and obviously you're seeing it in the awards and the accolades that are starting to come down for him at this level.
Well, and the interesting thing is, of course, that the hope this year with Bradly was that he would kind of round out his game. So, very specific requests in terms of improvements in defensive area, playing a heavier game, being more kind of involved in the play, and so on. No question, his offensive skills are off the charts. But the question was, could he kind of add those other pieces? Which younger players is generally the second thing that kind of comes along and say, I think I'll start checking now and hit the odd guy. He's definitely doing that, and he showed that clearly with the Canes. And of course, he's sitting at plus 23, as I mentioned. He's definitely doing all of those things, and of course is just off the charts with his offensive game. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about some thoughts on some of these players in a few minutes. I think there's going to be some action that may come very, very quickly here as we head toward the NHL trade deadline. But we'll talk about that in a minute. The other member of that line is Ryan Suzuki. He's just, he's the veteran on the line. He just keeps doing it. He's over a point a game, actually a point and a half a game his last 8 games. He's doing it too. A great line. Now, one thing I wanted to mention was that the Wolves have been getting some help from some other lines too, which is kind of fun. The second line, of course, features Felix Unger Sorum alongside Pavlychev and Veirling. Okay, now, Veirling's an interesting one to me. We've talked a little bit about Evan Veirling before. Veirling, he's drafted by the Rangers, didn't really go anywhere. But, his last year in junior, he had a pretty darn good year. He had 95 points in 60 games. And he was a guy that, he's a good-sized guy, 6 feet, 180 pounds. He can do some cool stuff. I think this year he's played quite well for the Wolves. What are you seeing with Veirling?
I'm seeing a lot of the same that you're seeing. He wasn't necessarily on my radar a lot heading into the season, but it was kind of one of those guys when, you had, Tyson Jost was claimed off of waivers and everything. A couple guys that you're expecting to be there, Yaska has been on the mend here. Who's going to step up? And, there's a list of names that maybe you might not be familiar with. Well, then once they start showing up and showing out, that you start like, hey, this guy, he can play. He's pretty good. And Veirling is kind of in the similar vein of Robidas, just kind of his smarts for the game, and he has such a good nose for the net that, especially when you're playing on a line with a guy like Unger Sorum, who knows where the puck's got to be, when it's got to be there. All you got to do is kind of put your stick down, and you're going to be receiving gifts all day from a guy like that. And he's just been a good fit in with that line with a playmaker like Unger Sorum, with a guy like Pavlychev who can go in there and get the puck for you. Go to the net. That's kind of like it's the oldest adage in hockey. If you just go to the net, and just he has the smarts to recognize the gaps and where to fill them in. And again, a guy who, who's the? I guess he kind of just a name at first, but now he's been around with such consistency. He's been on that second line all year.
He has. Yeah.
And, to do that, you have to really earn the coach's trust. You have to show up and not just perform on the offensive side. You have to come back and make sure that you're responsibly sound on your own end as well. So he's been able to do that with consistency. The coaches love him. The fans love him. I kind of love him, if you can't tell. And it's been one of those stories where it's like, this guy, I don't really want to say he came out of nowhere, because you're right. He had good years in juniors and was a pick of the Rangers and everything. But I wasn't, you weren't expecting him to come up and cement himself in a top six role, and he has. And again, he did it because he's got a great IQ and he's got a great work ethic to go along with it. It sounds kind of cliche but you got those two big points of the game, kind of like with Robidas, who's a freak in his own right, and that's why he's doing as well as he is. But he's kind of Robidas light in a way. And, that breeds success, as you've seen now with two different guys that we've talked about.
Well, and the Wolves did sign some players on their own accord in the offseason, and they do this because they know they're going to have players coming and going. We've talked about this a lot in the past too, Andrew, where, in the AHL, hey, that's the nature of the beast, right? You're going to have players that are going to be called up, or they're going to be traded, or who knows what. And all of a sudden your team looks a little bit different. So he was one of the guys, and Blake Biondi was another one. They've got some guys that are kind of interesting players that they've kind of signed, that they said, hey, these guys, Yannick Turcotte, players that could fill a certain role and are going to be there, day in, day out. Doesn't matter who comes or goes, they're going to be around. And Nikita Pavlychev's another one. Those guys are, they're solid contributors. Now, the other member, you mentioned the setup capability of course, Felix Unger Sorum. He's got 11 assists in his last 8 games. So he's definitely setting people up. He's a busy setup machine. He's got 25 assists now in half a season. So he's kind of tracking to a 50 assist season. So this guy he's definitely doing that. And of course, he had some good success scoring on the power play earlier this season. He's a guy that, again, when we talk about players that may find a new home at some time, Felix Unger Sorum, I think, is another guy that fits that group to a T. Now, the other line that I wanted to mention as we talk about the forward crew, of course, is the line that would be mirroring the Jordan Stahl line with the Hurricanes. You've got Stahl and Martinuk, and now you've got Ehlers. This line has, of course, Skyler Brind'Amour alongside Captain Josiah Slavin. And then they've had different folks right now. I think it's Noel Gunler on the wing with them. They had Gleb Trikozov for a while. I think Brind'Amour, and I've talked about him ad nausea, I think Brind'Amour is just doing it all this year because he's scoring goals. You know what he can do defensively. He's to me the whole package. What are you seeing with Brindy these days?
We've talked a lot about how he's kind of a carbon copy of how his dad played this game, right? And just how tenacious he is penalty killing, how reliable he is to get you the puck with face-offs, and how responsible he is defensively. he has really kind of turned it on in terms of just kind of how he's been able to put the puck in the net in an
Yeah.
offensive zone, and it's a wrinkle to his game. Like I'm sorry, Skyler, I wasn't familiar with your game here, and it's another one of those cases of, we've had a couple of guys that we were expecting who weren't there. Here's who's going to step it up, and
Right.
Skyler has really kind of shown out in terms of just how he's just not. He's not just a defensive anchor. He's an offensive contributor as well. And another surprising name to that is Noel Gunler. I would say, like, in my time on the beat, maybe the second most frustrating player I've ever had to cover besides Dominic Bach.
Dominic Fensore.
Yeah, that's a name.
Oh,
So I mean, yeah, maybe Noel's not blowing me away, but I've seen him. I've noticed him. Just noticing him is step one there for him, and just being more more aware of the right plays that need to be made. And then now you got a guy like that who's kind of coming into his game a little more. I'm not going to say that's a direct correlation of what Skyler's been able to bring out and on with him on his wing, but I don't think that's not circumstantial or anything. I think that there's a lot going on there, and having his rock and Josiah Slavin, they're a great pair on the penalty kill together. They're wonderful on that third line. It's he's been massively improving with what he can do with the puck, but I think it's the chemistry that's going on there. It's doing wonders for him, and when you have those top six lines that are playing as well as they have been lately, just opens up so much more ice for these guys. So it's also good just not to lean so heavily on those big workhorses. You know what you're getting all through the lineup, and it makes life easier for everybody, Skyler included.
Well, they won 4-1 the other day, and the big dogs didn't score anything. So basically, you're right. It's the supporting cast. Noel Gunler, to me, remember, second round pick. He was a guy that when he was drafted, boy, he was loved by a lot of the folks who were analyzing the draft at the time, and they said, boy, this guy, he's a dandy player. And he just has never put it all together. But I've been watching lately, and he's looking like the part. Like he's playing, making some great plays, scoring some beautiful goals. And yeah, maybe it's a situation where you put him with some folks that can kind of watch his back, and he can go out and do some of that good work. So that's great. Hey, I wanted to mention, for those folks who don't know who Dominic Bach is, now Dominic Bach was a first-round pick of the St. Louis Blues, and he was the big piece that the Canes acquired when they traded Justin Falk. So he was he was the player they wanted, and they got him, and the rest is history, and not in a particularly good way. Oh man, that's crazy.
They sent him home after a couple of weeks in the Calder Cup championship season, and I wonder how that made him feel to watch those guys go on the run that they did while he was back home in Germany. Ugh.
He was in Germany, yeah. Yeah, it's there's always funny stories that you kind of think back to, right? Doesn't always work exactly as planned. Hey, one other mention on the forward side, and I know you want to talk a little bit about this guy, Ivan Ryabkin. So he's gone. He's been sent to Charlottetown in the Quebec Major Junior League. What's your thinking around this whole thing?
I think that, it was a good move to kind of get him up here and exposed in this league and be like, if you want to play with the big dogs, here's what you got to do. Here's what it looks like day in, day out. And he had a couple of months to kind of get his feet wet and everything. And I think at the end of the day, he was still kind of in a little over his head. So it was just raw, as most 20-year-old, 19-year-olds are like in this league. It's tough to hang unless you're Bradly Nadeau. He's the exception to the rule. This is how it ends up for most of these young players like Ivan, and I think it's best for him in his development. Not just, I mean, sure, yeah, he has a lot of talent. He has the size to hang around. He's not there yet to kind of be an every night contributor, and it's tough as a kid like him in a fourth line role. There he had a lot of penalties and spending a lot of time in the box, spending some time in the press box, and it's just for a kid his age and kid of his talents, you gotta be out there. You gotta play. He's getting very little, if any, power play time, and getting sent out to Charlottetown and in the queue. Get to play in all situations. You get as much ice time, I mean, as he can get and he can handle. And I think it's just better as him to kind of be around guys more his peers at that age and work into that game. And I think getting his little cup of coffee here in Chicago to start off is going to serve better for him to start next year.
Yeah, I think that's
because he's going to be, familiar with the coaching staff, familiar with the style of play, and he's going to more hit the ground running versus kind of getting his feet wet, similar to Unger Sorum last year.
Yeah.
And so I look forward to seeing that, but I think long term, this is better for Ivan to kind of you got your experience, but now it's time to kind of let's work on what you learned while you were here in Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he's a younger guy. We didn't really expect him to get signed like this and end up in Chicago. I think a lot of us were kind of looking and going, "Oh, that's interesting." Definitely a player with, huge upside. There are a lot of folks who talked a lot about Ryabkin going into the draft. He was a guy that a lot of folks liked. Some were concerned about him for other reasons, but always as a player, definitely somebody of interest. So, yeah, he's going to have a chance in junior, he's going to probably terrorize them. I wouldn't be surprised. And he'll have a great run with Charlottetown. And that's a great program for him. So I think, again, really good stuff with Ryabkin, and we'll look forward to him coming back next year. And there'll be players gone, and there'll be an opportunity for him to move up the depth chart quite a bit, I'm sure, based on what we're going to probably see come up in this next number of months. So good stuff. I wanted to kind of talk about one other forward, but I'll preface it by saying this: is that the blue line has been a work in progress this year for the Wolves. Oh my God. Not necessarily going as planned, right? So you've had some injuries along the way. Fensore's been out for periods of time, and of course Charles Alexis Legault went out with a serious injury, and he was expected to be back, probably patrolling that pair with Fensore, and they were so effective last year. And of course, the good news is that Legault is now skating with the Canes, so he's in yellow shirt, so he's skating. He'll be a little while yet, but boy, he's definitely earmarked to head back to Chicago. Yoel Nystrom, who came back to Chicago for a cup of coffee and then, of course, was summoned back to the Hurricanes and subsequently scored the first goal of his career, which is kind of exciting in the NHL. He's been a revelation, I think, with the Hurricanes. He's been phenomenal, and he will return to Chicago. You can almost bet on it, unless he's moved, and we'll talk about that. But I think he's earmarked to head back to Chicago. So you start to look at this Chicago Blue, and it starts to look pretty full because, of course, they recently added some other defensemen, Cal Foote and, of course, Juuso Valimaki in recent weeks. So they had a bunch. And subsequently, they made a deal with Buffalo, and they sent Gavin Bayreuther over to the Sabres. And we talked about Gavin last month. It's kind of funny. We have a big feature on him. And the next month, hey, well, thank you very much for helping us. We'll see you. The player that came in was Victor Neuchev, and not a lot known about him. Folks don't know much about Victor. Playing in Rochester, not really showing a lot. This year, he's only got 6 goals in 34 games, so he's not lighting it up big time. He actually played as a 19-year-old in the KHL, and that's kind of rare. And I think the last one I've been able to talk about with Nick Bass, of course, is Nikita Artemonov, who, of course, is a great prospect for the Hurricanes. But Neuchev did play as a 19-year-old, got a cup of coffee, as you say. He played a full season and then went back and forth. And what they do in Russia is they have three levels of teams are connected together. So you have the KHL team, you have what would be the American League team, which was VHL, and then Junior League team, which is the MHL. And he kind of went back and forth. So it's kind of fun. I thought I'd read a couple of comments, though, about the guy, just to give us some information about him when he was drafted. And there's some folks that generally talk about draft picks quite a bit. One of them, Scott Wheeler with The Athletic. Scott said, Neuchev's a mid-range marksman with one of the slickest, most effortlessly quick releases in the draft. Boy, that's interesting. Corey Proman, we know Corey is one of the big dogs for the draft and prospects in general. He said, Neuchev doesn't have the stats and accolades of top prospects, but when you watch him, it's easy to see the NHL potential. And then finally, Brandon Holmes with FC Hockey said, Neuchev is a creative goal-scoring winger who uses his skill to penetrate in the offensive zone and rarely passes up an opportunity to shoot the puck. So he was definitely looked upon as a guy that was able to shoot the puck and score goals and had some elite skills in that regard. Hasn't really shown up yet, hasn't really translated to North America. But hey, little risk in my view. His contract is up at the end of this year. He's a restricted free agent. They'd have to re-up him. My suspicion is if he shows something, that could happen. If he doesn't, he'll probably head back to Russia. So that's Victor Neuchev, and he'll be in a Wolves uniform very soon, I'm sure. Now, we talked a little bit about the D-Corps, lots of movement there, moving out Gavin Bayreuther and so on. What are you seeing with the D-Corps? What stood out?
Well, there's the D-Corps as it's been all season, and then there's the D-Corps of the last couple games, which has been it's been a little rough. It's been there's certainly grounds to improve on, but it's that's just going to happen over the course of a full season. You're going to have your rough patches, and you got to work on through it. Overall, I mean, I feel that as especially after the addition of Caden Primeau, once he came back, and there was a little more stability in the net, that there was more confidence in the defense, and in terms of like getting the puck out of the zone and everything. You're not, when you're so worried that a turnover you're going to create might end up in the back of your net, it becomes like you're manifesting it into existence. They added, the veteran presence of Juuso Valimaki,
yes,
who he's had 8 assists over his 8 games in a Wolves sweater. You're seeing why he was picked for the Four Nations squad in Finland last year before he got hurt. And, it's just a guy who's been here at this level, who's been there at the next level and knows what it's like to get it done. And it's great to have that kind of, that veteran presence in there for some of the younger guys like Dominik Badinka, Alexei Himosalme.
Yes,
it's like, this is the standard. This is the guy you want to be, right? The guy with a couple NHL games in his back pocket. They're probably going to end up there again sometime soon.
Yeah.
Follow him. Follow the leader. Follow what he does, and in all the zones. Follow what he does off the ice. What he does in practice. How. Absorb as much of that as you can. And, he's been leading from the front since he's come back. Yeah. And I think it's been great for these guys to learn from and follow that example.
Well, wanted to mention, Dom Fensore, I talk about Dom every time. It's something I have to do. Dom, 7th in the league in points for D-men. He's an all-star. Again, he's got 24 points in 31 games. He just, when he's out of the lineup, I think that's a big loss. And you think about as they start to put this lineup together, and you've got Dom and potentially Charles Alexis Legault back together, you've got Cal Foote, you've got Valimaki, you've got Seeley, you've got Himasalmi, you've got Badinka. I mean, you've got a lot of guys that you can play, and again, it's going to be a loaded defense. And if Nystrom comes back, he's going to add to that as well. So I think the defense is going to be very, very strong. And, interesting thing on this D-core, too, I think, Andrew, is that it's something like the Canes, right? The Canes, they kept kind of having different players in and out, and they were missing one of their big dogs, of course, in Slavin. And they were kind of out of sorts on some nights. It's hard because they're seeing different partners, and they're partnered with a different guy. And, all of a sudden, it's kind of weird back there. And once you kind of get it settled in, and I think that's what the Wolves are going to try to do here once all the walking wounded come back and players return from Carolina and so on, is they're going to get the lineup pretty well established. And you're going to see a big difference in just the overall kind of, flow of the game with your D core and confidence back there, knowing their partners, knowing what to expect. It's just kind of, it's challenging when you've got all these moves and changes and injuries and so on. And it's been like that for the Wolves since day one. So, I look at guys like, Valimaki and Cal Foote, and, a little bit kind of wondering about the Cal Foote signing, but he's played good hockey. Mm-hmm. And he's a solid defender. He's defense first, but he's getting some points, making some really cool plays. And he's a guy, again, he brings that veteran presence. And he was a highly regarded defenseman when he was drafted. So, good pedigree. And when you talked about Valimaki, I mean, rightfully so, he was picked for the Four Nations last year. And he's a guy that had a couple of great years with Arizona. He was tremendous. And playing big minutes and in significant roles for them. So I think he's on an NHL deal. I think he's a guy that the Canes felt comfortable could fill a role for them. They need a little bit of depth on the blue in case of injury. They've got Nystrom on the right side. Now they've got Valimaki, which I think is a really smart move. And the big question with him, of course, was he had his second serious injury, ACL surgery, that he had to return from. And those are not quick. They take time to kind of get into form. But he seems like he's doing that. So, yeah. I think I'm really high on Valimaki. Wanted to say a couple of things about Dominik Badinka. Again, that podcast that I listened to, Aspiros Anastas on Sound the Siren, it was interesting what he said about Badinka. Basically, hey, young guy, we didn't expect him to play 17 minutes a game and get into all the situations he's gotten into, but he's handled it well. He's had the ups and downs of a rookie season for sure, but in the general, they really like what he's done. What have you seen with Badinka?
I don't usually see the kind of poise from a young defender like him, but he stepped into an expanded role that probably wasn't meant for him, considering the early call-ups and everything. But he stepped into it like it was just business as usual and just another day at the office. And for such a young player like him, just to have that kind of calmness in your game, it does wonders. And I've really enjoyed. I think that is kind of that mind to not force yourself into like trying to play beyond yourself in order to meet the expectations of where you're at in the lineup. Just play. He's just got the confidence to play his own game because he knows what works for him, and it's been working. It's been great. I've really enjoyed kind of both what he's been able to bring, in every zone of the game, and it's refreshing to see that from such a young player, because I've seen a lot of guys come through this league and kind of struggle to put it all together. And I mean, I'm not saying he's got it necessarily all together, but you don't expect him at that age to have it all. And but that he has where he is just mentally And it's, he doesn't necessarily back down from the challenge either. I think he embraced the opportunity and really kind of ran with it. And you see the markings of what makes him such a highly touted prospect. I love his skating. I love his gaps on defense. And like every young defender, you could have make some improvements here or there, but who can't? And it's been just all you want to see is steady growth, right? From beginning to end. And if you're gonna make a mistake, how are you gonna learn from it? How are you gonna improve on it? And even for how good he started, I think he's kind of slowly had that trajectory upwards where he's just getting better day by day. And I think it's going to be tough for Coach Anastas just to kind of figure out who gets to eat once you get a couple of those bodies back. But it's going to be hard to kind of push him back down the lineup after the months of showing that he can do it. You know.
Yeah.
So I've really liked what I've seen from Badinka.
Well, and that's going to be an interesting question because they're going to want to keep playing him. Again, the Canes control the player activity on the Wolves as well. So they're going to want to see him play. And, again, we saw him in some of the exhibition games with the Canes this year, and he showed that same calmness. I was astounded. I watched him and I thought, man, this guy is he's cool as a cucumber out there and he's playing really smart. And he's kind of more mature than his years would suggest. Just 19 years old. He's still 19. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that's got huge upside. And I think, again, they can take their time. One of the cool things about the Hurricanes right now is they don't have to rush these young studs at all. They can let them ruminate. In fact, they've been letting some of them ruminate in Europe. We saw that with Nystrom. We saw that with, of course, Alexander Nikishin. And they've got several others over there that we'll start to see trickle over to North America and some of them to the Wolves in the next year or two. So all good stuff. Just wrapping up on the player side, goaltending, not so exciting lately, although I think Caden Primeau is getting it done. His numbers look excellent right now. He's got a 246 goals against average, 916 save percentage, not too shabby. He hasn't been in as many of those massive scoring games as Miftakov has. Miftakov had 3 tough games in a row, 4 Milwaukee, 4 goals against, Rockford 5, and then Cleveland 7. So over a 3-game span, he had 16 goals against. That's not a good number. But Primeau seems to be holding the fort pretty good. What are your thoughts on goaltending right now?
Yeah, I think it's, it kind of showed out in that Cleveland series where the Monsters kind of jumped out to huge leads early on them. And it kind of, for Miftakov, I think he kind of, I don't want to say regressed, but kind of old habits kind of coming back from the beginning of the season, right? Just didn't look as confident as we've seen him over about the last month. And, when it just kind of, it creates a domino effect, right? Now you can feel that energy, right? Okay, the goalie looks kind of shaky. Now the defense is kind of, second guessing, and now you're behind 5-1 or whatever. They had a couple of rough ones in Cleveland, but they managed to come back both times. So
yes, they did.
And so I think it's been a tough stretch for him. I don't necessarily believe that he's gonna kind of go back to October Miftakov, where it's like you're kind of seeing the the inconsistencies in his positioning and just not being so sure of himself. I think he's just kind of going through one of those stretches, and it's just one of those times where everything's got to get worked out a little bit here. And Primeau is doing Primeau things.
Yes.
We've kind of come to expect at this point now what a guy who's been here and done everything at this level and what he's going to be able to bring. And yeah, I think he had a tough outing against Rockford there, but you're going to have one of those couple in the season. But aside from that, he's been about as consistent as Chicago could ask for. Very much in the same vein of what Spencer Martin brought last year,
right?
And I would actually, I don't know, I would actually love to do a mirroring of what their statistics look like.
Check the two of them.
That'll be
Yes.
next month's episode.
Okay, good. That'll be fun. I'd love to see that. Well,
But
it's great to see
yeah,
Spencer back. I mean, Spencer's with the Rangers now. Of course, he went to Russia for a while, so it's good to see him back too.
yeah. I'm glad. I loved his bluster and his energy. He kind of was very fiery, kind of more just like a hairier Pyotr Kochetkov. And and so
funny.
I was sad to see him go to Russia. I'm happy that he's back here. Especially, I mean, New York's kind of going through it with Shesterkin on the men, so it's a good opportunity for Spencer to kind of like re-solidify himself back in North American hockey. So great to see him, but it's also great to see, Caden Primeau kind of continuing to, I mean, just carry it forward from the net out. So good stuff.
Well, the Wolves sitting in great shape right now, and as I see kind of the rest of the season, I think they're going to hold quite nicely in second place, and they're going to be right in the mix. And I think the big thing to look at as we head into the All-Star break and so on too. I think Andrew is what's going to happen with the Wolves. So there's two things that could affect them profoundly, of course. One of them is call-ups. If there are injuries to the Canes, of course, they're going to, dig into the players that they want, the top players likely in Chicago. So that's something you have to be kind of mindful of. But I think the bigger question is, I wanted to get your feelings on this one, is a lot of rumors about the Hurricanes trying to make a blockbuster trade. This is going everywhere as you see it on X. It's just the hottest topic. They're in on every single one of the big deals, as they usually are. But it's probably an expectation too that somebody significant on Chicago would be a part of it. So, there'd be a lot of pieces. There could be players from the Canes. There'll be draft picks, but there'll be key prospects. And, you look at that and what goes through your mind when you start to say, hey, wait a minute, who might we lose here? And, it's not going to feel very good as a Chicago Wolves fan, for sure.
No, it certainly doesn't when you're at the mercy of the parent club. But that's kind of the nature of the beast, right? It's just kind of the unfortunate reality of everything. I mean, look what it took to get Keandre Miller. It was another All-Star, Scott Morrow, that was on the move. So, again, it's the reality of it. And these guys, they know just as well that everything's out of their hands. And so sometimes when you see a loaded NHL lineup in front of you, like you might in Carolina, you might get discouraged or whatever. You're sitting here in the American League. Well, if you just put your nose down and keep playing well, you might another team in the system's going to be like, hey, I like that what that guy's doing down there. Let's see what he can work up here with us. And so, there's all consistently moving parts in the NHL and here in the AHL. Now, when I started looking ahead and thinking about like, I wonder how this team's going to do in the playoffs. Well, it'd be nice to have some of these guys around for sure. But it's something that's out of your hands, and you just got to live with the reality that in the bigger picture, in the grand scheme of things, it's up to the parent club and what they see best for themselves. And of course, they want to do right by the guys down here in Chicago too. So, back in the Calder Cup run, they a couple moves were made to see to it that you want to see not just see these young guys succeed, but you want to put people around them that are going to lend them into a great big long playoff run, because it's better for those kids as they're growing up to understand the intensity, what it takes to win in the postseason in any level of hockey. So it's not like Carolina's going to take all the guys and just throw them around the league and just be like, all right, well, here you are in second place, but good luck. We're just sending all your players away. I think they're going to do right to kind of put the right guys in place to see to it that this team, has as much success as they can in the postseason, unless they run into Grand Rapids, in which case it's up to the hockey gods at that point.
Well, they're going to be playing Grand Rapids 6 more times during the regular season, so they'll have a real opportunity to figure that one out before they get into the playoffs. It's interesting when you think about the players that would be likely to go in a big deal. Who kind of jumps out at you first?
Well, you got to start with Nadeau, and I know that's not a name that anyone wants to hear going away, but you got to spend money to make money. And I know it's been a big MO of Carolina that they want star power in the lineup. Yes. Didn't work out with Rantanen and Gensel and all that, but to get those kind of premium players, you got to give up a guy with kind of some sky high potential like Nadeau. So
yes.
If that's unfortunately that's name number one is the one that's in everyone's hearts down here in Chicago, but it is what it is. I mean, it's again, it's the nature of the sport. You want to go out and get Elias Pettersson, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
First name that comes to mind.
Sure, it's a good one. Yeah,
it's probably. It's going to cost you one of your 2 all-star forwards at least if you can. Again, these things take a lot of moving parts, but that's the way it is. It's the way you're not going to be able to get premium assets without giving one in return. This isn't EA's NHL. This is. And even then, you got to give some premium stuff in order to get guys.
NHL, okay. They're making your deals, Well, you're right, and the reality is this too, and it's a bit of a challenge for Bradly is the way that the Canes are structured. So, I mean, on the wings, if you think about their first couple of lines, which is where he would slot in. I mean, you're not moving Svechnikov. You're probably not moving Ehlers. You've got Jackson Blake. Okay, he could be a guy that somebody wants. You've got Stankhoven, who it's believed will move back to wing at some point. And, of course, you got Seth Jarvis. There's really not a spot. And these guys are on long-term deals. So it's not like, okay, this guy's got another year left and, we'll bide our time and he can come up when there's injuries and so on. I think that's the biggest challenge. Now, where it could change in the positive way would be if they did trade one of those guys on the Canes. If they said, hey, we want a player that's currently playing with the Hurricanes that we think can come in today, maybe that opens up a spot for Nadeau. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I believe that March 6th, by the time everything's said and done, there'll be some changes to the Chicago Wolves.
That's the business. It's I hope it's not earth shattering, but that's between Eric Tulsky and the hockey gods, and not for me to decide.
For sure. And for sure. And one of the areas that could be of interest will be goaltending. The Canes are going to want another goaltender. Whether or not they can slip him down to Chicago is another question, but they're going to want another veteran goalie for sure. They don't feel particularly comfortable, I don't think, with the 2 gentlemen in Chicago right now carrying any kind of, lengthy run with the Canes. And I think they're going to want somebody else in case of injury. So that could be an opportunity to strengthen up the team, and they're doing it definitely on the blue line, as we've seen with Valimaki and Cal Foote. So it's good stuff. Okay, so let's wrap up with a quick look at the coming month, and what do you think we're going to see in the next month?
Well, to start off, I mean, on Friday and Saturday they got a nice little back-to-back with the hottest ticket in town with the Grand Rapids Griffins. Right. And it's the absolute number one measuring stick, I mean, in league history. So this team's already played them twice. They've gone to overtime with them twice. And it's, if you wanna to be one of the big dogs, you got to prove that you belong on the ice with them. And I mean, they got smacked around in another game against them, which is it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. This team is far and away number one in the league for a reason. But if you can, if you can show up, you can steal a couple of points away from them, and as that second team in the division, you got to get a show. You're going to give them some pushback and make sure that this isn't just a cakewalk up until the Calder Cup playoffs. And I like to see how this team continues to to answer, and how here's the gold standard. How are you going to measure up to that? Are you going to rise to the challenge, or are you going to get smacked around like you did last time? And it's certainly no shame in dropping a game against the Griffins and everything, but I want to see them kind of you go down 5-1 against the Griffins. Warm up the buses. There's no coming back against this team. So
yes.
Kind of get rid of. I want to see them get rid of those habits of giving up the first goal and then giving up a couple more. And you got to get out and get ahead of the game and make it so that they're not just imposing their will and dominating and doing what the Griffins have been doing all year, which has just been absolutely suffocating teams and just not giving them any space and any room. You got to find a way to break the mold. And but it's at the same time, I'm excited for the opportunity to see what they do and how they respond, because that is the standard. And if they can meet it and knock them off and on a night and where they're vulnerable, it just that can be the kind of stuff that that galvanizes a squad and gets them really going out on a good run here. So it's a challenge for sure, but it's one I think everyone in that locker room's looking forward to.
Well, I mean, when you look at the Griffins, they're built for strong defense. I mean, Sebastian Cossa is one of the best goalies in the league for sure. And you've got all these veterans on defense. I don't know if people are aware, but they've got a lot of experience back there. I mean, Justin Hall, Eric Gustafson, Ian Mitchell, and a whole bunch of guys. These are all veterans for the NHL. So, I mean, and they got guys like Tuomisto and other guys back there. I mean, they're loaded on the blue. And, when I look at, as the season goes on and the Wolves and what the Wolves defense could start to look like, again, where you've got veterans like Cal Foote and Valimaki, and then you've got, hopefully you get Legault and Nystrom back to go along with Fensore and others. I mean, all of a sudden the defense starts to look pretty good. And that's huge, right? And a good sized defense. They're not, other than Domenick, they're good sized guys, which is important, because that's one of the things I noticed with again with Grand Rapids. They got big players. I mean, they're out there heavy, and they're not making life easy for you. So they're the standard. You've got to look at them and say, what are you going to do? The other team, of course, that I keep my eye on is Rockford. Of course, they're always the Ice Hogs. They're loaded, and Chicago has had some great players down there. Now, luckily, Oliver Moore and Nick Lardis are gone, so that's good news. But they're still a pretty good hockey club. So, you got Sam Renzel and other guys that you recognize who are currently playing, in Rockford. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I think it's nice to have a little bit of a break. The NHL, of course, has the Olympic break, which is kind of fun. And, of course, there's the All-Star break coming up in the AHL as well. So, it'll be kind of interesting. And they'll have some of those individual competitions, and we'll see how some of the guys do from the Wolves, and some of those as well. So it's going to be good stuff. And probably, as we come on next month, it's going to be really close to the deadline. We're going to be seeing, there might have been moves done. There could have been some interesting things happening. So I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of fun with the coming show that we talk about February as well. So as always, Andrew, it's I love talking about the Wolves. There's so much good stuff going on, and not like the years where the Wolves tried to roll it on their own and didn't quite do so well. It's quite a different situation now. The Canes definitely want this team to be successful, and they want to groom their young players here in an environment that continues to help them prepare for the NHL, of course. So I think you're right. We're going to see some players added. Not sure who they'll be, but I fully expect there'll be some players brought in, and that'll be fun to see as well. So lots going on. Great fun as usual, and we'll pick it up in a month from now and continue our discussions on the Chicago Wolves. For those of you who are listening or watching and have spent time with us, of course, Andrew and I are always pleased that you do that. If you like this episode, please press the like button. And of course, if you have comments or questions or just want to say hi to Andrew, that's great. Do that in the section down below. And of course, if you want to be alerted of future episodes of Storm Tracker, please press the subscribe and the bell buttons. And of course, you'll be made aware just as soon as they're available. As always, Andrew and I thank you so much for spending time with us and look forward to getting together with you real soon right here on Storm Tracker.